Hello again. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Mahari Foster and today we are reading from 2 Samuel chapter 18 from the New King James Version. In this chapter, there is war. David is fighting against his own son, Absalom. And David numbered the people who were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. Then David sent out 1/3 of the people under the hand of Joab, 1/3 under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the hand of Ittai, the Gittite. And the king said to the people, I also will surely go out with you myself. But the people answered, You shall not go out, for if we flee away, they will not care about us, nor if half of us die, will they care about us. But you are worth 10,000 of us now, for you are now more help to us in the city. What I find in this verse, what the people are basically saying is, if you come out and you come to fight and you die, all of us are scattered. There's no chance for reconciliation. There's no chance for you to claim the kingdom back to you. If you die, we will be scattered. Verse 4. Then the king said to them, Whatever seems best to you, I will do. So the king stood beside the gate, and all the people went out by hundreds and by thousands. Now the king had commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, saying, Deal gently for my sake with the young man Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains orders concerning Absalom. So the people went out into the field of battle against Israel, and the battle was in the woods of Ephraim. The people of Israel were overthrown there before the servants of David, and a great slaughter of 20,000 took place there that day. For the battle there was scattered over the face of the whole countryside, and the woods devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. Then Absalom met the servants of David. Absalom rode on a mule. The mule went under the thick boughs of a great terebinth tree, and his head caught in the terebinth. So he was left hanging between heaven and earth, and the mule which was under him went on. So let's imagine this. Imagine this. Absalom has these great locks of hair, strong and healthy, and Absalom was described in previous chapters as a very handsome young man. So I'm just assuming that the length of his hair and how lustrous it might have been added to his charm. So now the same object of his beauty, the same object of health and strength, is holding him captive between heaven and earth, and he is stuck by his hair in a tree. How painful. Now I don't know about you, if someone grabs your hair and pulls, you're going to feel that pain all over your scalp. The roots is going to be tender. It's a very painful experience. Now a certain man saw it and told Joab and said, I just saw Absalom hanging up in a terebinth tree. So Joab said to the man who told him, You just saw him, and why did you not strike him there to the ground? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a belt. But the man said to Joab, Though I were to receive 1,000 shekels of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hand against the king's sum. For in or hearing the king commanded you, and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware, lest anyone touch the young man Absalom. Otherwise I would have dealt falsely against my own life. For there is nothing hidden from the king, and you yourself would have set yourself against me. Then Joab said, I cannot linger with you. And he took 3 spears in his hand, and thrust them through Absalom's heart, while he was still alive in the midst of the terebinth tree. And 10 young men who bore Joab's armor surrounded Absalom and struck and killed him. So Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom and cast him into a large pit in the woods, and laid a very large heap of stones over him. Then all Israel fled, everyone to his tent. Let's pause there. Absalom is a king's son, and by nature, a king's son garners respect. How he is treated, how they address him, they are all because of his status as the king's son. But now Absalom is killed like a commoner. He's killed in a very gruesome way. 3 daggers are thrust into his heart while he's alive on a tree. And then Joab's armor bearers, 10 of them, strike him and kill him. And then he is thrown into a pit. Now, I'd like to relate that back to us. We are children of the King. We are called after Christ's name. We are Christ's own. Because he bought us with his blood, not only that, but because he made us, we are his. We are his children. We are children of the King, sons, daughters of the King. But when sin comes in, when we live in a life of sin, the devil wants to end us the same way, just like Absalom met his death. He wants us to die a commoner's death. He wants us to die eternally. And he wants us to not bear the marks of the King, which is Christ Jesus. 18. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and set up a pillar for himself, which is in the king's valley. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. He called the pillar after his own name, and to this day it is called Absalom's monument. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said, Let me run now and take the news to the king, how the Lord has avenged him of his enemies. And Joab said to him, You shall not take the news this day, for you shall take the news another day. But today you shall take no news, because the king's son is dead. Then Joab said to the Cushite, Go, tell the king what you have seen. So the Cushite bowed himself to Joab and ran. And Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, But whatever happens, please let me also run after the Cushite. So Joab said, Why will you run, my son, since you have no news ready? But whatever happens, he said, let me run. So he said to him, Run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran the Cushite. Now David was sitting between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate to the wall, lifted his eyes and looked, and there was a man running alone. Then the watchman cried out and told the king, and the king said, If he is alone, there is news in his mouth. and he came rapidly and drew near. Then the watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called to the gatekeeper and said, "There is another man running alone." And the king said, "He also brings news." So the watchman said, "I think the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok." And the king said, "He is a good man and comes with good news." So Ahimaaz called out and said to the king, "All is well." Then he bowed down with his face to the earth before the king and said, "Blessed be the Lord your God, who has delivered up the men who raised their hands against my lord the king." The king said, "Is the young man Absalom safe?" Ahimaaz answered, "When Joab sent the king's servant and me your servant, I saw a great tumult, but I did not know what it was about." Let's pause there briefly. There are persons, sometimes me included, we hear something and we want to bring the news, but we don't have the entirety of it. We haven't heard the full message before we run with it. So this is also a warning to us to be careful of how we bring news to others when we are not very sure of everything. And the king said, "Turn aside and stand here." So he turned aside and stood still. Just then the Cushite came, and the Cushite said, "There is good news, my lord the king, for the Lord has avenged you this day of all those who rose against you." And the king said to the Cushite, "Is the young man Absalom safe?" So the Cushite answered, "May the enemies of my lord the king and all who rise against you to do harm be like that young man." Then the king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said thus, "O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. O Absalom, my son, my son." There are casualties in war, and Absalom and his men were defeated before David. What I find interesting is that David and his men are not fighting against external foes. They are fighting their own people, Israelites, who have turned against David and are on the side of Absalom. One man's sin can cause the downfall of an entire nation. And here we find that many men are slain because of Absalom's actions, and by extension, David's actions when he disobeyed the voice of the Lord and he went wrong by going in onto someone else's wife. And everything trickles down into the generations. This must have been a painful experience for David. He is not fighting enemies from without. That might be painful, but the most painful part must have been fighting enemies from within. And he does not only lose many people that day, but he loses his son. Thank you so much for reading 2 Samuel chapter 18 with me. I am Mahari Foster, and I look forward to seeing you next time.